I mean, the fantasy is certainly there now. Shame about the damage, though. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome to, well, a surprise out of nowhere build. Okay, it's not really a surprise or out of nowhere. We know we've just had the mid-season patch, and we know that it has buffed 3 main sorcerer builds: Meteor, Ice Shards, and Incinerate. I have built all 3, and as you can tell, because you read the title and you've just seen Meteors, Meteor is the one that I've ultimately decided to present to you. Chiefly because it is at minimum really fun now. Having the cooldown lowered from Starfall Coronet coupled with the extra Meteor always happening when it hits group of enemies, you can just have these infinite spam Meteor Storms rain down, and it does plenty enough damage to, at the very least, dominate just general farming in tier 4, and that's really what you need. Don't push the pit with this. The absolute peakest version has claw struggled through like a tier 95, but you really need perfect gear, and that's a lot of investment for a non-perfect build. Because I won't lie to you guys, this thing is just fine. It has gotten a massive fun upgrade, but damage is still severely, please, it's a literal meteor, come on! When it comes to Incinerate, there is actually some potential there, and it can hit now absurdly high with the quite frankly ridiculous amount of buffage it got, but it's also acting a bit weird in what does and doesn't affect it, and basically I need to do a lot more testing and also get a lot better gear before I can fully make a conclusion on that and bring you it, but you know, generally look out for it. I'm leaning towards doing a build for it, but we will see. It still suffers from, you know, having to channel and that getting interrupted constantly by pressing lightning spear and ice blades, which you have to do, and just kind of feels because of that, honestly, more than the standing still, so functionality I think really could still do with a bit of a bump. Then don't get me started on Ice Shards. That isn't actually better thanks to this patch than it was before, because Enlightenment is still better than Avalanche, and Ice Shards wasn't anywhere near worth bringing you before this patch, so really that's still a very, very dead build in the grand scheme of things, and I really can't wait for it to get its unique, and hopefully I would love a season of Ice Shards. I don't mean to be negative. I absolutely adore Sorcerer. You know I do. I am always trying to push it. I really do love it. The class fantasy into Season 7. I will be here and always doing what I can for the class. Not just for you guys in videos and builds, but, you know, behind the scenes talking to Blizzard in the Sorcerer balance channel. You know, a lot goes on, and me and many other of the Sorcerers really try and get across what the class needs. So the fight will always be the good fight, ladies and gentlemen, but right now, well, Meteor, you're seeing it go through this guaranteed Ancestral Legendaries Undercity tribute, and the actual visuals, I mean, they are there. The Meteor Storm flowing through is really, really excellent. The second we do get a meaty damage bump, even more than this, it's really gonna fly. Now, I do not have perfect gear here, but you can kind of start looking at almost 500 million-esque a Meteor dropping if I did, and you could be definitely casually farming sort of pit 80s in a quick manner, so you know, it's not horrendous. And look, we're this far into the season, nothing really matters. If you love your Meteor and you still want to be able to fast farm through your regular tier 4 torment farming, then yeah, this is certainly workable, and then some in a meaningful way. Mainly then, the 2 big changes are the Coronet going from a 4-second minimum cooldown to a 3-second one, so combined with Ice Blades and attack speed and then regular cooldown reduction, you can have more Meteors than you can cast, so suddenly attack speed actually becomes really relevant because you're just throwing them out, well, again, as fast as you can, which feels great. And then, yes, instead of a chance to get a double Meteor, we now always get a double Meteor. Sadly, we don't use the Meteor enchant because it actually, as it turns out, has an internal cooldown on it, which is really irritating to prevent just infinite Meteor changes, because I don't know, it's not like that would even be be that powerful because it would still take a while to kill something in like a high pit, but in any case, it is what it is, and the build certainly flows quickly, which is primarily what you want. So let's get into it. Beginning then with the skill tree and 2 points into Firebolt, but this can be anywhere. We just want to get to core, and we want to get to core so we can immediately move on to your defensive. So to do that, fill out your elemental dominance, and then potent warning to get to said defensives. 1 point into Flame Shield, just so we have it, and then teleport gets every spare point you have once you're done doing everything else, which in my case is an extra 2, and then enhanced and shimmering. Then we want to fill out your glass cannon for the free damage, take your ice armor all the way to enhanced and mystical. We're obviously not spending mana in a meteor coronet build, so shimmering isn't usable, sadly. Though that said, we have enough cooldown reduction that ice armor is up permanently even with mystical, which is actually quite nice. Over to your conjurations, max out your precision magic, though technically this can go elsewhere. There's not really a lot of lucky hit shenanigans actually occurring, and we can afford to redistribute them. The only thing is there's not actually a great amount of places to put these points, so you're sort of fine to just leave them there. It at least tangibly helps with, you know, the freeze enemies and immobilize them from your worldly fortune tempers. Then we have your ice blades into enhanced and summoned, and that's going to be your second enchantment slot because your first was teleport. Yes, indeed. This needs to be our enchantment because we can't fit it on our bars, so we want to keep that mobility. And as I said, we don't use meteor as it's a little bit of a lie in terms of how it works, and you can't just have it spam infinitely rain meteors, and it's kind of gone the chain lightning enchant route of so we get a lot more out of actually picking up the mobility and having an extra 3 ice blades for the cooldown reduction on our meteor charges. Then we get lightning spear to enhanced and then invoked. Fill out your conjuration mastery. No point taking mana shield because again we're not spending mana, but we will grab the usual align the elements and protection. To the masteries where we fill out your meteor, then get your enhanced, and finally mage's meteor so it comes down quicker. Fill out your icy veil so we really do guarantee permanent barriers, especially with the ice armor, as we'll be using storm swell, full inner flames and full devouring blaze for big damage and big crit damage. And then over to your ultimates, get your hoarfrost as we will be freezing enemies and then hurting them badly, and then we get your full evocation, free cooldown reduction, elemental synergies, we might as well, we have the points, it's a bit of damage, and then fiery surge so we can get soulfire for that increase in damage. We will ideally be wanting to stand still both for this and runes while killing anything with a lot of health, so this does work out. Then your coursing currents into your electrocution, so your lightning spears keep you alive more, especially as we lose the extra damage reduction from mana shield, and then we take unstable currents and prime unstable currents for the attack speed. This will be permanently up, and it translates to 25% more attack speed to your ice blades, which means 25% more cooldown reduction for your meteor. And then, yes, we get enlightenment. None of the others can compete with it, especially not S's ferocity. This then is, when it comes to our equipment then, this is where we end up. Legendary aspects wise, you want either a staff or a one hand and focus. I've gone for the staff as doubling 3 curses for an extra potential 90% multiplicative critical strike damage, means for some big numbers, but if you use a one hand sword and focus, you'll have a higher average damage, so whichever is easier for you to put together. It's the middle of the season, it's not going to make a huge difference, and this is what I ultimately went with. If you do use the one hand offhand route, then you want 3 curses to be on your amulet instead, and the extra aspect that you bring in will be in a calm, or conceited depending. So, yes, if you are using the staff, 3 curses goes on it. Then on your amulet, we want Storm Swell for that huge increase while Ice Armor is up, which it is permanently. We want on your gloves Shredding Blades for that lovely vulnerable multiplier. And then on your legendary ring, which is very rare to see a non-double unique ring Sorcerer build, we want Elementalist. Unless you have enough critical strike chance without it, which I certainly don't, I need that extra 40%. Then another 12% from your Searing Heat, and we start to get close to that 100% 100. If you are using one hand and your focus, like this near 17% I've got here, you might be able to get away with that and bring in an extra offensive aspect like Inner Calm, but I like to have Elementalist just for the consistency. And then we move to your defensiveness, or at least utility, with Orange Herald, so we have permanent unstable currents. Uniques wise, the usual Rakanoff's Weight for the all resist. The cooldown reduction is absolutely required. It is huge for Charge Meteor. Starfall Coronet, as you know, the whole function of the build, but you need to get a 3-second one. To the point where I'm having to use this, even though it's got minimum Meteor rank rolls and it needs all the damage it gets, so this really kind of sucks, but you need to have that 3-second to really spam it. Then you want yourself your Tal Rashes, as it is a colossal amount of damage, and the cooldown reduction and everything about it is just too good to give up in essentially every build. Then for Mythic Uniques, we want the Shroud of False Death. The +1 to all your passives is just excellent alongside the max life to be very tanky. I really hate that we can't use Helm of Perdition alongside this, but it is what it is. Please just give Meteor more damage. Affix-wise then, you want ranks to Conjuration Mastery, ranks to Devouring Blaze, ranks to Core Skills, then you want Critical Strike Chance, Attack Speed, and Critical Strike Damage. They are your main ones, and then just your health and your armor and your intelligence to go along with that. Runes and Gems then, for your gems, your Critical Strike Damage in your weapon, armor in your jewelry, and then intelligence in your one bit of normally gemmed armor. Runes, you want cast a skill with a cooldown, which you are quite literally doing constantly in Meteor for your Warcry, and then you want Standing Still to give you even more crit chance to again help smooth out that crit rate if you need it. You've got to balance this with Elementalist and so on and so forth, so decide for yourself if you actually need that extra help, and you are better of changing Elementalist to a more offensive aspect and keeping this rune than the other way around. When it comes to playing it, I mean, yeah, just spam your Meteor. Now, as you can see, even without me doing much anything else, I am already kind of casting it fairly frequently. But as soon as we get our Ice Blades out and Unstable Currents on, well, you start to really see the difference that makes. We have a lot of Ice Blades out, they are reducing the cooldown of Meteor every time they hit, they're being given a load of attack speed, and suddenly we can really spam it. You start doing everything else, get even more Ice Blades out to the maximum cap of your 6, and I'm actually just gaining charges faster than I can spend them, which is really, really nice. Other than that, use your Teleport of Aid to get to where you need to go as fast as you need to go there, and everything else is very much just to kind of spam it as soon as it's up, get Enlightenment going as quickly and as often as possible, and you will find yourself in a good place. It's an incredibly tanky build, despite not having Mana Shield, because every time you press Meteor, I mean, you get your barrier from protection, and it is very satisfying to play, to look at. Honestly, every single part of this build is incredible, except the raw damage it deals, which I guess is the problem I'd rather have, because you could easily fix numbers up, and the actual core mechanics, fun and flow being really solid is nice to actually have in place. Mercenary-wise, you want Rahia with the usual Ground Slam into Aegis, into Bastion, into Inspiration, so the Ground Slam and the Bastion keeps giving you massive damage increases, and then for your Reinforcement, we want the usual 10% attack speed from Bloodthirst on Vajana. When it comes to tempering on your weapons, you want critical strike damage and a chance to deal double damage with Meteor. I should say, though, you are pretty much okay if you get, like, essentially any Meteor damage increasing type thing. So, for example, the fire damage, the attack speed, the critical strike damage, the mastery damage, it's all of muchness, and you can tune it to where you like it. The attack speed can be quite nice to speed it up, and if you are using a staff, I would recommend attack speed, but you are fine with just kind of a generically relevant damage increaser. There's no one particular stat we need to megally scale here, so we just want damage in general. Then on your legs, you want the percent total armor to be capped, and specifically chance to freeze. On your gloves, you want again chance to freeze ideally, but if you already have one freeze, any kind of CC is fine, and then critical strike damage, etc, etc. On the ring, unstable current cooldown reduction, and then, yes, the various offensive options I went over, and then same on your amulet. When you get your Masterworking, try and hit your ranks of passives, and indeed ranks of core if you do have them. Other than that, you are good to just kind of get the good stuff. The double meteor damage in particular is really nice to hit too. Finally, then, Paragon. Stay with me point for point, and let's do this. Grab your Elementalist on the right, and wherever possible, get every offensive increasing magic node alongside the points that you have to spend. I'm still only, air quotes, at 232 Paragon level with 260 points, and I already have everything I could ever want for this build, so just put stuff in things that are at least useful once you have everything that I'm about to show you. Then get your Resilience up to your glyph slot, where I have slotted Exploit, but what you actually want to slot in is your Adept for the increased meteor size, the mastery skill damage, but mine is still level 1, as at no point did I ever expect to be doing meteor this season, so yeah, that's kind of awkward, but honestly Exploit isn't crazily far behind it, so just to point that out. Then we want Studied alongside Elemental Balance, and get your Dex to activate everything, and grab all of the damage nodes. Straight up then into Fundamental Release, glyph closest to the gate as is normal, and then head up right to Lightning Cutter to the glyph slot where we slot Tactician, get it activated with the Dex, and also grab Elemental Balance. Heading straight up through these 3 more decks to Fundamental Release where we do grab it, up to this Willpower, branching right, then getting everything around Kiddling, and then going left for Suffused Resilience and getting the damage reduction too. Then we want to head straight up here to the top gate, where we will place ourselves Frigid Fate. Heading up to this Intelligence, initially going right just to grab Oppressive and all of the vulnerable damage and reduction around it. Then we go up to the glyph slot, where we slot and activate Elementalist, and we just need to get, you know, Elemental Favor and Weakness in a straight line, and all is well with the world, and I don't know why there was a random little bit of willpower there. In any case, we then want to head left in order to get guarded, going straight through Weakness, and then up and round for your Frigid Fate itself. I'll just shove that there for now. Then we want to head left from your Electromagnetism, which you do want to grab alongside the damage reduction, and here is where we will find Searing Heat. Going up to the glyph, where we slot and activate Destruction by grabbing every single little bit of dexterity in the radius to maximize our critical strike damage, alongside Flame Touched Explosive and all of the magic nodes besides. Heading through the middle then for Combustion, and then we continue along to the legendary node Searing Heat. And indeed, this is what I was going for next with Keeper of Flames with spare points, and that's the kind of thing I mean when I say just get anything that's at least useful after you've got what I'm showing you. Then finally we head right to Overdrive, grab what's around it, and head into your Enchantment Master. Initially, glyph at the top left, go down to this Willpower, up to the glyph, slot and activate your Flame Feeder, and then get Elemental Balance and Tactical. Heading to here then for Ruinous, the non-physical and the attack speed is really lovely. Then going over to this middle Intelligence, over to this damage reduction, down to Enchantment Master, so our teleport has a less cooldown from Evade, and our Ice Blades get summoned more often, and then we also grab Suffused Resilience and the damage reduction because we might as well. And that's how it all kinda shakes out and is good to go. So there we have it, everybody. A look at Mighty Meteor in its buffed Season 6 mid-season patch form. The potential, as I say, is here. It is undeniably fun, and it's more fun than it's ever been. It just needs that little bit of damage boost, and we'd really be there. For now, though, let me know what you're currently playing, if indeed you still are, and like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.